Learning ASP.NET Core MVC as a beginner can be frustrating if you don't follow the right steps. It's easy to jump into tutorials that show bits and pieces of the framework, but unless you take a structured approach, you'll feel stuck when building a real-world project. In this video, I'll break down the 4 must-know steps to go from beginner to confidently building web applications. Let's get started. When I first started learning ASP.NET Core MVC, I made the mistake of treating it like just another framework without truly understanding how it worked. That was a huge roadblock. I'd follow a tutorial, copy some code, and when something broke, I had no idea why. Here's what I wish I had known earlier. Understanding MVC's core architecture from day one makes everything easier. Some key fundamentals to focus on are the model view controller pattern, knowing how these 3 components interact to handle requests, process data, and return views. The routing system, learning how URLs map to controller actions and how to customize routes when needed. And the Razor syntax, the syntax you'll use in your views, allowing you to integrate C# code into your pages. Skipping this essential will make everything feel harder later, but once you get this right, you'll start seeing how everything connects. If your app doesn't have a database, it's not much of an app, right? But here's the problem. Many of us struggle with database integration in the beginning because we don't take the time to properly learn the foundations first. In ASP.NET Core, you'll mostly use Entity Framework Core. It's a tool that lets you interact with databases using C# without writing complex SQL queries. Here's what you need to focus on when getting started. Configuring your database. Learn how to set up your database using migrations and connect it to your ASP.NET Core app. Building models and relationships. Define your data structure and set up relationships. One-to-one, one-to-many, and the many-to-many relationships. And then CRUD operations. Learning the create, read, update, and delete operations, which are the core operations to interact with the data of any application you build. Most beginners get stuck because they follow a tutorial, set up a database, and when an error happens, they have no idea what went wrong. But if you actually learn these fundamentals, errors will still appear, but you'll know where to look and have a better understanding on how to fix them. One of the most important steps that will teach you ASP.NET Core MVC is building something yourself. You'll obviously start with small, simple projects and run them locally, but after a while, small test projects aren't enough. You need to build something that feels like a real-world application. Some essential concepts that you need to learn and then include in your projects are user authentication, implementing login and registration using identity to manage the users of your apps, the service-oriented architecture, so structure your app with services to keep your business logic clean and reusable, and best practices for code organization, so try your best to follow good coding practices from the start to make your project maintainable. The key is to start small, building something functional, and then expand step by step. After spending weeks building your app, you'll need to put it online for actual users to access it. As a developer, you must learn how to deploy your projects. So you'll need to learn hosting your app on a server, so learning how to publish your app to a hosting provider like Microsoft Azure, configuring a custom domain name, making your app look professional with a dedicated URL, and setting up an online database. So you'll need to deploy your database to a cloud provider so your app runs smoothly in production and so that it can handle users' data. The first big step in deployment is getting your app online, then making sure it runs as expected. Over time, you'll learn to optimize and configure it better, so don't stress too much at the beginning as it can seem like a lot. If you want to take the right next steps as a .NET developer, I've put together a free roadmap that lays out exactly what to learn and in what order, so you have a clear guide on what to focus on. You can grab it by clicking the link below or visiting dotnetdeveloperroadmap.com. And if you want to keep learning ASP.NET Core MVC, I've made a full beginner tutorial which should be on the screen right now. So click on it and I'll see you there.